One item that I think is a must-have for anybody who's intending to breastfeed is a manual breast pump. These are relatively small, they're compact, they don't require a power source to function, they're pretty easy to use, and they come in handy if there's a time where you are separated from baby or your electric breast pump and you need to express milk, or if there was an emergency situation like a power outage and you didn't have your electrical breast pump accessible to you, then these would come in handy. These are the two more popular manual breast pumps on the market. So you have the Lansinoh or the purple breast pump and the Medela Harmony breast pump. So I'm gonna go over some of the features of each one, how they function, and which one is my personal favorite. Let's get into the Medela Harmony breast pump. So this actually came in my package of pump stuff when I was at the hospital. So if you have a baby and they have a Medela Symphony pump available for you to use there, then you get a package of sanitized pump parts, and this comes with it. I used to work at the hospital. I've also had 2 babies prior to this one, and this is the old pump that used to come with it. So this is another hand pump called the Medela Lactina, and it's just a piston and cylinder pump. What I will say about these is I feel like most people at the hospital, both the people who work there and the people who were admitted there, didn't know how to use this. I didn't know how to assemble it, didn't know how it was used, didn't take the time to learn. It's not really something we're used to seeing. And so I feel like more often than not, this just went to waste. So I do appreciate that Medela came out with this version, which is a little bit more user-friendly, something that we are just more used to seeing. So some of the parts and pieces that come with the Medela. Let's go over the stem first. So this is the handle and what makes the pump a pump. So the pieces that come with this, so if you were to wash and sanitize this, these are the pieces that come apart. So you have the handle piece and the diaphragm piece and the stem. So the stem goes through the diaphragm piece, and just for orientation purposes, you want to make sure it's oriented vertically and not horizontally. It won't work this way. So just kind of follow, there's a couple of little guides on the inside here to match up and make sure that it's oriented correctly. And then it just goes right onto this handle. Use your fingers to push there and get a good seal. So that's how the handle piece all disconnects and connects back together. The rest of the pieces, you have this flange that's removable. This one came with both a 24mm and a 27mm flange. And I'll take this moment to talk a little bit about flange sizing, although that truly needs to be its own video. But your flange size is this circle here, and that's supposed to be pretty close to the measurement of your nipple. So this should be about the measurement of your nipple. And I will say that most women actually measure smaller than a 21mm. So like I said, this came with a 24mm and a 27mm. So both of those flanges are going to likely be too large for most people. And if you don't have a good fit, you typically have a hard time getting a letdown. You can have poor milk output. You can have pain and damage with pumping. We don't want any of those things. Pumping should feel relatively comfortable. So that's the flange. What I will say about the 24 is you can buy many different inserts that fit into a 24mm flange. So this is my size insert here. It goes right into that 24mm flange and makes a nice good seal. So it's basically like this flange is your size. That's on flange sizing. Then you have the bottle, of course. Medela products have, this is what their valve and membrane set look like here. And so it only goes on one way, but you can see how those bumps right there go up and it pushes in one way, and then it pushes up against the breast shield like that. And then you'll connect the bottle. And then the handle part will just go, the stem will go right in there. So when you are ready to start pumping, I'm gonna take this off so you can see what this part looks like. You're going to put the flange up against your breast. You want to center your nipple into the flange hole, the flange opening, and you're going to start by pumping using this mode right here, which is their stimulation mode. It has the water droplets and an arrow, and this is going to be a gentler suction, and you're going to do a little bit more of a rapid pace. This is called stimulation mode or letdown mode because we're trying to stretch and pull your nipple to stimulate your milk to let down. So we do that. Once your milk lets down, you're going to switch to expression mode, which is just using this side of handle here, and it gives you those longer, stronger pulls. So that is similar to what baby would be doing if they were directly nursing at the breast. So they typically start in this rapid, shallow pattern. Once the milk starts flowing, they do this more rhythmic, stronger suction and pull. And that's really what is drawing your milk out. And then you can always switch back to that setting too. So say you notice your milk stops flowing, but you still feel like you could keep expressing milk, then you can go back to letdown mode or stimulation mode and ask your body for another letdown. Another thing with the Medela is, so we talked about the 24 millimeter with an insert. You can just remove this whole piece and use something like, I love using the Lactech flange. This is already in my size. It goes down to a 12 millimeter. So you can get your Lactech flange in your right size, and that just pops right in there. And then you have the right size for you. You can also use something like the Pumpin' Pals has some different sizes as well. And you can orient this to however it's most comfortable for you. And I will say with the Medela hand pump, you do need the little plastic adapter piece for the Pumpin' Pals to work, but similar idea here. You just get the size that you need and you can pop it right on. That is the Medela Harmony. Now let's go over the Lansinoh. So Lansinoh comes with a 25 millimeter flange, which, like we just talked about, is likely going to be too large for most people. I looked on their website. They do sell a 30.5 millimeter flange, but nothing smaller. I forgot to mention the Medela does go from a 21 millimeter flange to a 36 millimeter flange that you could purchase in that hard breast shield. So this one has either 25 millimeter or 30.5 millimeter. Both are probably going to be too large for most people. The unfortunate thing is the inserts that I was talking about earlier are designed to fit into a 24 millimeter hard flange. So putting it in a 25 millimeter, what I found, because I did try it out, is this will just kind of move back and forth with the suction. So it's not a very good seal. It can compromise your milk output. So that's the only unfortunate thing I would say, is the flange sizing is just a little bit off. I'll show you the rest of the setup here. So this does easily come off. So you can do the same exact thing if this is the pump that you have or the pump that you were looking at to purchase or someone got it for you. You can just stick your Lactech flange in there. You can put your Medela flange in there with the correct size insert. It's easy enough to take off and remove and use whatever setup works best for you. From there, you have the handle. Looks a little bit different here. I will say ergonomically, it's a little bit more comfortable. We'll talk about that more in a minute. And here are some of the pieces and parts. So this, I'll take it apart so you can see how it all works. So similar, but not the same. It has this stem and diaphragm, and you just stick it through the bottom there. So the stem pokes up. There are two different levels on here, which will become important in just a minute. And then that goes onto this top piece here. Just make sure, again, you're getting a good seal with that diaphragm. And then your handle will click right in there. The valve is a little bit different. This is a duckbill valve. So you can see how that differs from the Medela one. Basically, when it suctions, it kind of sucks together and then it release milk into the bottle. So that just goes right on there. This is the piece where if you notice a decrease in suction or milk output, you would want to replace that valve just because silicone does wear out over time and use. So you connect it to the bottle. Let's say this is the correct flange size for you, just for demonstration purposes. You're ready to pump. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna make sure that this notch is, you only see one notch on here and you see a gap here. So that is gonna be your letdown mode. And you will see, you'll put it up to your breast, align your nipple in the center, and then you're gonna start pumping. So you wanna do, again, rapid, shallow pumping until you notice your milk starts to flow. Then you're going to push right here where it says push. You'll see that pop down, no more gap here, and you're gonna get a longer, stronger pull. And the nice thing about the hand pump is you can adjust this to however it works best for you. So if you start to figure out your body likes a little bit of a faster cycles, faster pull, then you will just move your hand faster. If your body likes the slower, more gradual pull, then you will just go slower. And some women respond really well to switching it up. So you go from letdown mode to expression mode, back to letdown mode. One thing I will say about these two pumps, I tested them to see what the strength of the vacuum suction is, because I respond very different to both pumps. And when they are in their expression mode, so that longer, stronger pull, they actually max out at the same vacuum setting. So that means they can both hit the same exact level of suction based on my vacuum gauge that I have here. Where they differ is going to be in letdown mode. So those shorter, more rapid draws, you can see that there's less overall range of motion and movement with the purple Lansinoh one, and there is a slightly longer range of motion with the Medela one. And what I noticed is that impacts how far your nipple is getting pulled and stretched. And so what I had kind of mentioned briefly earlier is that in order for you to have a letdown, your nipple needs to experience that pulling and stretching. And with the Lansinoh pump, we'll see if we can see the difference here. With the Lansinoh pump, it's a very, very, very short range of motion. With the Medela pump, let me remove this so we can see. Maybe you can't see it here, but you get a longer range of motion, meaning your nipple is able to be stretched further down the tunnel and then recoil, and further down the tunnel and recoil. I personally respond better to this. And so because of the difference in letdown mode, I checked the vacuum range, and Medela has a stronger vacuum in letdown mode. So these numbers may not mean anything to you. If you're a lactation professional, they will. The vacuum strength of the Lansinoh in letdown mode was 165 millimeters of mercury, and for the Medela, it was 200 millimeters of mercury. So it has a little bit of a stronger suction and a longer pull. So if you're somebody who is maybe a little bit less sensitive, or you really need to feel the pump and the suction strength to get that letdown going, then this may be a better option for you versus this one. If you're somebody who needs, you know, a more gentler suction, you just know that about yourself, you just tend to be more sensitive, you have a lower pain threshold, then this really gentle one might work really well for you. Now, with that being said, even if you are somebody who needs that gentler suction, you have the Medela or you want the Medela, you don't have to use the full range of motion. So full range of motion will get you to 200, but you can do a shorter range of motion and it will give you less suction overall. The other thing is ergonomics. What do I think about those shapes there? So you can see your hand does have to reach quite a bit further to get the full range of motion with the Medela versus even on expression mode, your hand doesn't have to reach quite as far because of this little dip here. So ergonomically, I do think that Lansinoh is a little bit better. My hand did fatigue quicker with the Medela, but with the Medela, you can just, so say you're pumping like this, you can readjust your fingers a little bit. You can actually adjust this whole handle piece here so that it is at an angle that's comfortable for you. You can also switch hands if you need to. The only time I could see this being really problematic is if you're someone who has carpal tunnel syndrome, or if you have what's called mom thumb. It has to do with the tendons in your hand and your wrist, or if you just had wrist or hand dysfunction or difficulties, then this could be potentially problematic for you. So just something to keep in mind, because I know that wrist and hand problems can be a little bit more common during pregnancy and postpartum. So which one's my favorite? If you haven't figured it out already, the Medela Harmony is my favorite. I respond much better to this one. I like that it comes with a 24mm flange. That way you can put whatever insert you need in it. I actually personally prefer to use the Lactech flange with it. I think this is the most comfortable option and where I get the most output. I like that it has that little bit of a stronger pull. I just respond better to that. It technically, well, kind of was free in all of my pump stuff from the hospital. I'm sure if I read through my hospital bill, it's on there somewhere. This one for me tends to work better and is my top choice. If you have used either one of these or both of them, can you leave a comment below? I know that, I personally can only speak from my personal experience with them, but it would be good to know what your experience is with the hand pump, because I know that anybody watching this video will be curious to see what others' experience was and to learn from others to help make a decision on what would work best for them. So I will leave links to everything that I showed down below so you can check out the items that I showed. And if you like this video, then please like, interact, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I will be putting out more feeding related content. Thank you.